Hello, everybody, and welcome to our special live stream today. And let me just double check my mic settings, make sure you're here. We're going to be celebrating Easter, Passover, however you want to call it. It's an exciting day today, and one we're going to dig deeper on. We always go for the deeper hidden meanings. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Um, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, I think we're good to go. Why am I not? There I am. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody who is tuning into the One Accord server. And we are all about bringing the Bible to life. This is our gathering place. And as you can see around me, it's like a little mini church. But as we are continuing to build, we have more and more and more expanding from the Garden of Eden. But today we are going to be leaving the Garden of Eden and we're going to go all the way to our latest build, which is the kingdom of Jericho. And the Israelites march into it. So if you're tuning in live, love to hear from you in the chat. We'll want to give a shout out to everybody joining, and please tell your friends. Everybody be looking for someone to tune in for Easter. Come join us. We want to celebrate with you. And by the way, you're always welcome to join us live in our server. You're welcome to always try these things out for yourself. So how can you jump shortcut to our latest build? You can come right here to the river where the tree of life is, and we're going to be teleported to another river. In the Bible, everything is connected. It's not a coincidence. We're going to be going from one river to another. And we'll let Minecraft go ahead and load. And by the way, friends, if you're tuning in, you are on the One Accord Discord. You got the IP address to log into our server. Hope you can join us. So welcome to the March to Jericho. Moses is dead. The Israelites, now led by Joshua, are camping along the Jordan. 40 years ago, their forefathers sinned and were denied access to the promised land. Will this generation make it across? That's going to be the big question. I'm sure the angels watching were just on edge. Were these Israelites going to make it through, or were they going to mess up like their parents did? An entire generation stuck in the wilderness for 40 years. They were supposed to cross here. They're supposed to be here, cross the Jordan and get into the promised land on the other side. But they were unfaithful. And God said, because you did not believe, because you wanted to believe the bad report of the spies, because you thought it'd be impossible to take this land, I'm not going to let you into it. But after 40 years, here they are camping on the edge of the Jordan River. And we start the book of Joshua right here. Yahweh spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go across this Jordan, you and all these people, to the land which I am giving to them. And by the way, we're reading from the World English Bible, and it usually translates God is Yahweh. So I'm not being particular with the name, but that's just the Bible version we're going with because it is a public domain Bible. So God goes on and says, I have given you every place that the sole of your foot will tread on, as I told Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even to the great river, the river Euphrates. Notice river, river, river. All the land of the Hittites and to the great sea towards the going down of the sun shall be your border. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Or as I was with Moses, Yeah, so I will be with you. I will not fail you nor forsake you. Isn't that a sweet promise? I will never leave you nor forsake you. And we see this repeated through the Bible again. Even Jesus, as he's ascending, says, Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end. So, the question is, what did God say he would give to Israel? What did he say he was going to give to Israel? He said, I have given you every place that blank will tread on. If you go back, he says, I will give you every place that the sole of your foot will tread on. So here's a fun fact. Archaeologists have found at least 5 campsites in the Jordan Valley area where the Israelites likely passed through. And notably, these sites are often surrounded by stones forming the shape of a giant right foot. So we can look here and see that. A giant right foot. And you could go on YouTube, you can see videos. There's several people who have been making videos revealing this archaeological discovery. And here on One Accord, we want to follow the Bible and archaeology and show the two work in harmony. And here you go. This is how the Israelites would have camped. Now, in reality, they would have had millions of people, right? And the camp would have been way larger. There's no way we can build that much. This project's been taking forever. But this gives you an idea of generally how it would have looked like. So now we got our new mission. Spend the next 24 hours preparing to cross the Jordan. Oh, we got a new task. Meet with the 2 spies who just returned from Jericho. Even though this is a small scale camp, it still feels really large and takes a while to get from one end to the other. So, Joshua, we've returned from spying out Jericho, says Spy One. We had to hide in the mountains for 3 days to evade our pursuers. And before that, we hid on a roof under the stalks of flax. A woman named Rahab helped us escape from the guards. Her house is along Jericho's outer wall. We made an oath to spare her and those in her home if she ties a scarlet string in her window. So Joshua probably asked, what's the situation like there in Jericho? And this straight from the Bible, truly, Yahweh has delivered all the land into our hands. However, all the inhabitants of the land melt away before us. So now we must sleep for the night. Going through our checklist. And as part of this Bible study, we're wanting to convey the passage of time. So in reality, there would have been a couple of days as the Israelites would have moved to this location. But we're not going to build 3 Israelite camps. Next, let's take a look at some Book of Moses, because the Israelites didn't just cross the Jordan without any history. We have to remember that they already had Moses writing down many instructions. They've been through many experiences, and that's going to inform this trip, this march across the Jordan River. So we come to Numbers 13, starting at verse 31. It says, but the man who went up with him said, we aren't able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. They brought up an evil report of the land which they had spied out to the children of Israel. The land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that eats up its inhabitants, and all the people who we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the Nephilim. Of course, some people think, oh, wow, this is like a different species, maybe man mixed with demons. Or the word can simply be translated the giants. As we just saw earlier, we see right here, it says, men of great stature, these sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, come from the giants. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we are in their sight. So there's these tall, tall people. They're freaking out. And I think here does it say not here yet, but we'll keep going. So Deuteronomy 9, verse 1. Hear, O Israel, you are to pass over the Jordan today, to go in to dispossess nations greater and mightier than yourself, cities great and fortified up to the sky, a people great and tall, the sons of Anakim. So notice that the theme here again, they're giants, giant people, huge, and they live in cities that stretch up to the heights of the heavens, almost feels like, fortified to the sky. So these are why before they came in, you have to remember Joshua and Caleb and 10 other spies were sent out, investigated the promised land, and they came back, and 10 freaked out. This was their report here back in Numbers 13 about, oh, we're just like grasshoppers. We're going to get totally stomped on by these people. We're not going to make it. And yet, they're being reminded that here in Deuteronomy 9. And of whom you have heard say, who can stand before the sons of Anak? Know therefore today that Yahweh your God is he who goes over before you as a devouring fire. He will destroy them, and he will bring them down before you. So you shall drive them out and make them perish quickly, as Yahweh has spoken to you. Don't say in your heart, after Yahweh your God has thrust them out from before you, for my righteousness Yahweh has brought me into possess this land, because Yahweh drives them out before you because of the wickedness of these nations. Not for your righteousness or for the uprightness of your heart do you go in to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations Yahweh your God does drive them out from before you, and that he may establish the word which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob. Know therefore that Yahweh your God doesn't give you this good land to possess for your righteousness, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember and don't forget how you provoked Yahweh your God to wrath in the wilderness. So wow, here we have some amazing just cuts you to the core of these words, right? So you're going up against some tall, giant people living in massive fortified structures. It looks like you're going to lose. It looks like you're going to face the great challenges. But what we find here is that God's saying, I will drive them out by my own might, by my own power, because they're wicked, not because you're good, not because you're righteous. Don't think because of your righteousness, God blesses you. And this is an important thing for all of us. It's not, a lot of us have in our mindset that if I'm going to be a good person, maybe God will bless me. God will do something for me. And there's truth in keeping God's laws helps God to bless us, but that's not the reason why he does those things. Oh, great, Sky. Thanks for tuning in. All right, let me teleport you, my brother here, or sister. Let's see. Kiki. Oh, okay. My brother. There we go. Hello. So we are here to read in the word. And this is very important. Again, these words, I think, because these really set the stage for events we're going to see later on upon crossing. The Israelites are realizing that the battle is actually within themselves. They must not repeat the mistakes of their forefathers. They must not have doubts and fears because they're going up against some huge, mighty people. And when we're talking about these giants, these sons of Anakim, these buildings stretching to the heavens, there is probably one city that especially is on the mind of the Israelites in these times, and that is the city of Jericho. We can't under understate how significant Jericho was for these people as they are coming to the Jordan and about to face their greatest fears. But God is giving the promises that He will not forsake them as long as they don't provoke Him to wrath in like they did in the wilderness. From the day that you left the land of Egypt until you came to the place, you have been rebellious against Yahweh. And it's so easy to step back and say, haha, these are the Israelites. But the reality is, it's even us Christians today. We are all so rebellious in our heart. And really, again, the battle isn't us against some other group outside of us against liberals, us against this group or that group or whatever, this race, that race. No, the battle is within our heart. We do not wage war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in high places. It's agents of Satan who are working on our heart to lead us astray. And so now our next verse, Deuteronomy 11, starting verse 31. For you are to pass over the Jordan to go in to possess the land which Yahweh your God gives you, and you shall possess it and dwell in it. You shall observe to do all the statutes and ordinances which I set before you today. And by the way, those of you who are joining us here in the guild, feel free to let me know in the chat whether you want to have speaking roles, and I can welcome you onto the stage. So, new task. We must go now and send messengers through the camp saying it's time to prepare to cross the Jordan. Sky, can you help me out with this? So we need to just look for these exclamation marks in the sky and just run to those. So when you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, you must leave here and walk behind it, but stay about 3,000 feet behind the Ark. And these instructions you can find in the Bible. Keep your distance from the Ark so you can see which way you should go, for you have not traveled this way before. And sanctify yourselves for tomorrow. For tomorrow, Yahweh will do wonders among you. All right, nice. Thanks for the help. And as you read, the Bible says Joshua sent out messengers because that would have taken him forever to go through the whole camp. Let us sleep for the night. Now it's time to speak to the priests. A little mini recreation of the tabernacle. We have a full scale elsewhere at our Mount Sinai. Joshua says, take up the Ark of the Covenant and cross over before the people. And then God said to Joshua, today I will begin to magnify you in the sight of Israel, that you may know that I was with Moses, so I will be with you. All right, time for us to head out. And the priests are taking the Ten Commandments, hauling it out, and the Israelites stepping march behind them. Joshua 3, starting at verse 14. And when those who bore the ark had come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark had dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all of its banks all the time of the harvest. The waters which came down from above stood and rose up in one heap a great way off, and those who went down towards the salt sea were wholly cut off. Then the people passed over near Jericho. And this is kind of an accurate representation of what you would see. The Jericho would actually get pretty wide as it's overflowing its banks and spilling over. Even I mentally tend to think of a small little narrow creek, and they crossed over the creek, but it got wide. It was long. We're talking about, like, I think several hundred feet, or at least 100 feet wide at times, and pretty deep too. I think like 12 feet at least deep. And let's bring our friend over. Just in time, just in time to watch it um falling down. You're just in time. There we go. Imagine the priest walking up, it's just hitting the edge. Oh no, lost one. So the priest who bore the ark of Yahweh's covenant stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, and all of Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the nation had passed completely over the Jordan. And the priest would have stood right here, water be cut off. What an amazing sight that would have been to behold. See dry ground and just see the water piling up in heaps on one side. So it actually would have kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper on this side. One can imagine if they could look and see the fish as they were walking by. Let us cross over. Oop, I fell into a trap. Yay, we've done it. We have crossed over into the promised land. What a sweet moment that would have been for the Israelites. So we read now, when all the nations had completely crossed over the Jordan, Yahweh spoke to Joshua. Oh yeah, there's Yahweh right there standing at the water. He said, take 12 men out of the people, a man out of every tribe, and command them, saying, take from out of the middle of the Jordan, of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones. Carry them over with you. Then lay them down in your place where you'll camp tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, a man out of every tribe. Joshua said to them, cross before the ark of Yahweh your God into the middle of the Jordan, and each of you pick up a stone and put it on your shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask in the future, saying, what do you mean by these stones? Then you shall tell them, because the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of Yahweh's covenant, when it crossed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones shall be for a memorial to the children of Israel forever. So now we must find 12 stones. Hint, try pressing buttons. Find 12 stones. I've heard some people suggest that the stones that they pulled out were probably much larger than we suspect they were. They may have been like giant standing stones even, which would have been interesting to see. The thing is, I was the one who hid these, and they're still hard to find. Each of you who are tuning in, and how is your Easter going so far? By the way, if we stay to the end, we'll find out what this event, the crossing of the Jordan River, actually has to do with what it has to do with Passover and Easter. Ooh, 4 stones. We need 12 in all. Five now. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I got 7. A little sneaky one here. 8. Okay. To take one to Joshua. So we got a little pit here where we're going to toss them in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Let's do 4 more. Where's Sky? Oh, Sky's here. All right. Race is on to find 4 more. Oh, searching for stones. 12 stones. Ooh, just one more. We need just one more. If you ever watched Minecraft Mondays, they would do this game called Press the Button or Find the Button. People like Technoblade would make a lot of jokes about just what great TV this makes. This would be more fun when you have like 12 people all looking, trying to find as many stones as possible. One of those guys gotta have a stone. I wonder if one of the stones didn't get processed. I have a backup. I have a plan B to make sure this won't fail. Don't tell the others. Oh, Reddish Panda's here. I got all the stones. Meet up in the promised land. Teleport Reddish Panda. There we go. Two unbroken. Oh, we got Burn joined too. Awesome. So he we have here now the little pile of stones built by Joshua, 12 stones commemorating the people of Israel. And of course, stone is a symbol for Christ, but also, as Peter said, we are like lively stones, sort of building together the temple of God. So it's also a symbol of God's people. Together when built on the cornerstone, Jesus Christ. All right, now it's time. See what happens to the Jordan. So Joshua 4, starting at verse 10. If anybody here would like to read, feel free to put your hand up and I'll welcome you onto the stage. But it says, for the priests who bore the ark stood in the middle of the Jordan until everything was finished that Yahweh commanded Joshua to speak to the people, according to all that Moses commanded Joshua. And the people hurried and passed over. When all the people had completely crossed over, Yahweh's ark crossed over with the priests in the presence of the people. About 40,000 men, ready and armed for war, passed over before Yahweh to battle to the plains of Jericho. When the priests who bore the ark of Yahweh's covenant had come up out of the middle of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet had been lifted up to the dry ground, the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and went over all to the banks as before. Just like that. Um, if you want audio, uh, join the live stage in Discord. So the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. So if we see up over there, there's Jericho in the far distance. We're on the east. The sun is starting to set in the west. And we got the Jordan behind us. It's time to set up camp. Welcome everybody to Camp Gilgal. So let us sleep for the night. Yahweh said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time. Joshua made himself flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. This is the reason Joshua circumcised them. All the people who came out of Egypt died in the wilderness along the way. So they had all, the first people who came out had all been circumcised, but those who came from them, the younger people, the younger generation had not been circumcised. So first people who had been circumcised died in the wilderness along the way after they came out of Egypt. For all the people who came out were circumcised, but all the people who were born in the wilderness along the way as they came out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, even the men of war who came out of Egypt, were consumed because they didn't listen to Yahweh's voice. Yahweh swore to them that he wouldn't let them see the land which Yahweh swore to their fathers, that he would give us a land flowing with milk and honey. The children whom he raised up in their place were circumcised by Joshua, for they were uncircumcised because they had not circumcised them on the way. So basically, God had told them that you can't circumcise anymore while they were being unfaithful, sort of being punished out in the wilderness. But now, as they've entered the promised land, circumcision is back, baby. So I presume circumcision would have happened in a private place. Go into circumcision. So when they were done circumcising the whole nation, they stayed in their places in the camp until they were healed. Right, great. We just slept. And now God has a message for us. Today I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. The shame, the guilt associated with wandering around in the wilderness. We always say wander around. They were just stuck in more or less in one place. But the shame of being stuck because God refused to let them into the promised land, that is gone. Now they have their hearts circumcised. And then the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal. They they kept the Passover on the 14th day. So if you remember, they came over on the 10th day. They crossed the Jordan. So 4 days later now, we're celebrating Passover. The 14th day of the month at the evening in the plains of Jericho. They ate unleavened cakes and parched grain of the produce of the land on the next day after the Passover in the same day. The manna ceased on the next day after they had eaten of the produce of the land. The children of Israel didn't have manna anymore, but they ate of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. So, discussion question: what is significant about the Israelites celebrating Passover shortly after crossing the Jordan? And these are questions for you just even ask yourself, use the viewer. What's the significance of the Israelites celebrating Passover shortly after crossing the Jordan? Any thoughts about the Christian in the book? Question number one. What is the significance of them celebrating Passover shortly after crossing the Jordan? So it's interesting that just before, yeah, passing over out of the wilderness to the promised land. Think back, when was the first time we see Passover? It would have been when they left Egypt. So they were leaving Egypt, they come to the Red Sea, and they're stuck. They can't get out. And we have God dividing the water and they're crossing over. And now we come to another time where now they're about to enter into the promised land. So they were leaving Egypt, water's divided, they cross over. Now they're entering promised land, water divided, and they enter in. So interesting significance to me, or connection there. And it's always shortly around the time of Passover. And there's also a time where we'll read in Revelation where it talks about how the great river Euphrates gets drained. And that's closely associated with the time then when Jesus will come and gather his people to rescue them and take them to heaven. So what is the Israelites 41st? So this now is the 41st Passover for the Israelites. They've celebrated a total of 41. What made this one so special? That's a tough question. And really, this one would be answered by who for the first time wasn't there to celebrate Passover with the Israelites? And that would have been Moses. This is their first Passover without Moses. Yep, exactly. First Passover without Moses, and first in the promised land. So this is a special Passover. In a sense, it's a celebration of God's deliverance, but it's also a Passover with reflection of sacrifice, in a sense. Like Moses ended up dying. Why did he die? In many reasons. He did sin. Moses did die for his own sins, but also he was provoked by the sins of the Israelites. And so with them, they feel great guilt about how they had been so tough and rough on Moses his entire life. And Moses dies. And now they feel this great void, this great gap in leadership. And there's a lot more pressure now on Joshua as he's trying to lead them. So what's interesting, Joshua's name. So question number 4, Joshua's name means Jehovah's salvation is pronounced Yehoshua in Hebrew. Centuries later, the Hebrews shortened it to the name just Yeshua, which is also pronounced Ixus in the Greek. And then we come to, or Jesus, and then in English, that's Jesus. So names aren't accidents in the Bible, as we say there. Names are very intentional. So why did God want Jesus to have the same name as Joshua? Named after Joshua. Yes. Let's see if our crew here has ideas. And if you're watching live, feel free to drop your thoughts. Why do we have centuries later the Messiah being born and he's basically given the name of Joshua? And what does deliverance have to do with Joshua? So Sky Fergus is, I think, on the right track. So it's a matter of deliverance. There's something about deliverance that connects both Jesus and Joshua. We can read the next verse. So Matthew 1:21, she shall. So these are the words of Gabriel to, I think, Mary and Joseph. She shall give birth to a son. You shall name him Jesus, for it is he who shall save his people from their sins. So Jesus, for it is he who shall save his people for their sins. So if we go back, Joshua's name means Jehovah is salvation. So Joshua means Jehovah is salvation. Or Jehovah saves. And so indeed we see in the life of Joshua, Joshua gets to be the one who brings the Israelites into the promised land, out of the dry, dusty, dangerous wilderness into the promised land, the land of milk and honey. And it's the same way Christ is our deliverance, right? He has paved the path. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He's given us the path to get out of this dark, dangerous, tough, rough world and deliver us, break us free from sin, and bring us into both right now. Immediately, we can have a state of a different spiritual state being with Him. And likewise, someday soon, He will come by and totally deliver us. So, what parallels do you see between A, the great victory and accomplishments God accomplished for the Israelites through Joshua, and the victory we have through Christ? Anyone have thoughts on question 5? No? Thanks, Panda. That's a big question. But we also may have covered it a little bit just now. But as we go through, I believe that these stories in the Old Testament are almost metaphors for our life. And the experience of the Israelites is very much our own experience too. And as we're going to talk about next time, we all have Jerichos in our life. We all have giants and giant fortified cities that seem to get in the way of where we think God is calling us to be, getting in front of our plan from God. But we have Jehovah who paves the way before us, who actually is the one that fights our battles. He's the one who says vengeance is mine. That's not for us. Our battle is within. Our battle is within our heart. And the Israelites, when they were doubtful, they were succumbing to their fears, they were murmuring and always complaining to God. Their heart wasn't in the right place, and they were losing the battle. But after 40 years in the wilderness, a new generation comes that has prepared their hearts, and God allows them to be circumcised. And then here they are now celebrating the victory that God gave. Not only the victory that God gave them in Egypt and delivering them from the Egyptians and fulfilling his promise to bring them to the promised land, but also commemorating the future sacrifice of Jesus, who will free us from our sins, who will be that lamb slain since the foundation of the world, and the man who will someday come and save us. And yes, anything you'd like to add to that? So, all right, that concludes this Bible study. Next time we will march around Jericho and bring those walls down. So, it says we are seemingly on the border of the promised land. Ooh, that's a great point. We are indeed on the border. Yeah, that's very true. I wasn't even thinking about that. I like that. We are very much indeed camping right now on the border, waiting to cross over. And just as the Israelites were thinking and preparing their hearts, that's exactly how we should be right now, because it could be any day soon that Christ will actually come and deliver us. So, wow, great points. Great points. Thanks all for helping out. Next time we'll march around Jericho and bring those walls down. Bring them down. Paul. And I bet you will love to see us make that happen. Because, by the way, that behind us is a 1-to-1 scale Jericho. About to the inch that we could recreate. That's Jericho. And we will march around it, give you that experience that they had. And then to experience the joy of seeing your greatest obstacle in life come crashing down, falling down. So praise God for the victory he gives us. Praise God for the victory we celebrate today, that God has gained victory over life. That tomb is empty. Jesus the Lamb has paid the price. He has liberated us from sin, and we can now go look forward to marching into the promised land. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.